How's it going? And welcome to episode 4 of On the Couch. I can't believe we've made it to like episode 4.
We have nothing else to do.
We still have some viewers.
I know, there's like 12 people out there who actually watch this.
Hi, guys! Go 12 people! Yes! So the main topic that we're going to chat about this week is riding together on separate motorbikes, not pillion and rider, but we ride together on bikes, and we've been doing that for a number of years. I've also been, I also keep getting volunteered to be road captain. So when we go to like a bike rally or something like that, or a road trip, and there's a bunch of bikes all together, road captain is the sort of casual name for the person who rides right at the front of the group, and does the navigating and keeps a view on people behind them to see what's going on and what that's like.
Well, that's debatable whether you do that part. We'll talk about it.
Yeah, I do that with the people I like. And what was the other one? Yeah, and that'll sort of lead us on to things like intercoms and things. We'll see how far we get though. So that's the main one, is what it's like to ride together and that as an experience. Because we do a lot of that. And not everybody's done that as a couple, I think.
Yeah, and I think you're particularly great at road captaining, which is why you get volunteered. Well, I don't know if the reasons why you're great at it are glowing, but we'll talk about it. I think you get volunteered a lot for road captaining. I think it'd be interesting to talk about why that is.
Yeah, I don't know.
Shockingly, I have some thoughts on this topic.
I wouldn't want me as a road captain. Probably because I'm on a slow bike and I can't leave you all.
I think that's one thing. That's
Probably is. Yeah. Probably is. Anyway, so first off, we'll do the readers' letters. One particular thing that's going back to last week's episode 3, when we were talking about our touring essentials, we mentioned that we carry a power brick.
Yeah.
And how awesome we find those. GT's Garage commented and said that he's got one that doubles up as a jump starter for your bike.
Oh, wow. That must be big.
Yeah, so we had one of these. We tried one out very briefly, and I don't know if there are... Yes.
Oh, yeah.
We got one which I think is what he's talking about. So it is a power brick, but it's quite a... The one we had was way larger.
Yeah, massive.
It was probably...
More like a small battery.
Yeah, I would say it was like 6 of those bricks that I showed in last week's show. Yeah, it was good and sturdy. Yeah. Maybe they're smaller now. I don't know. And I'm pretty sure that one was for jump starting a car. So obviously it needs more oomph than it would need for a bike. But yeah, I think that's a great idea. And that comes back to what we were saying about carry one thing instead of two.
Yeah.
We're very lucky in as much as there's always a bike to jump the other bike off. I run a CPAP machine at night, and that has flattened the battery a couple of times, and we always have jump leads. And my bike just needs jumping off yours.
Yeah.
And the other thing is that when we're putting the bikes together, when we're beefing them up for touring, one of the first things we do is change the battery.
Yeah. Mega battery. And my battery that I have on my bike is like 5 times the size of the battery that you need to run the bike. So I think the battery it came with was literally like a third of the size, and we replaced it with an actual real full-size battery.
Exactly.
So that bike is, I think I'd have to work very hard to flatten that battery. I think my bike has run your CPAP machine 2 nights running without riding during the day to recharge it, and it was still fine.
Yeah, it's still cranked.
It still cranks
and
goes.
away, So there, with Lee's bike, she runs an MT-03. And
the 660 single version.
Yeah.
Not the current. So I have a 2008. I think after that, the MT-03 it's still an MT-03, but it's not a 660 single anymore.
Yeah, it's like a 330 twin.
Yeah, so it's the 03, 07, 09, whatever. Mine's a 660 single.
Yeah, and I was shocked because we got it for touring, because, knowing that's what we were going to be doing. And because Lee loved that bike. And I said, where's the battery? I couldn't find it. Lifted up the tank, and it's actually underneath the tank, and it's like... this big. It was total garbage.
Yeah.
So that was of no use whatsoever. And now she has a huge one strapped to the side that is roughly 3 times the capacity.
Yeah.
The next one, which was kind of funny, Matt Black Bike wrote in, commented and said, all this talk about waxing your jackets, why don't you just use lard? Cooking fat. Which I thought, and it reminded me of a guy I used to ride with who shall remain nameless, but way back in the day when we were really scruffy, as I've mentioned in the previous video, he used to rub kebab grease on his jacket.
How did you not have like birds and stuff coming after you with that?
The local dogs liked him a lot.
I bet.
He'd wake up in the park on a park bench because he'd like collapse going home from the pub with somebody's Alsatian sniffing round him. Where's this kebab stashed? Yeah, man, that shit was honking after a while. But we'd go to the pub, we'd go out on the piss, and we'd fall out the door and stagger into the kebab shop, and he'd like munch this kebab in, and then just get the wrapper and stuff.
Disgusting. Oh, you guys were gross.
Oh shit! His jacket was just so nasty.
Before my time, I should clarify that.
Yeah.
I did not know the version.
I'd reformed by the time I met you, to a degree.
And I've taken you the rest of the way. We don't do this kebab grease nonsense anymore. This is vile.
Oh god damn it! Yeah, and I brought a thing from last week's show. Check it out. The Game Boy Advance.
You found it.
Yeah, it was in a box of junk, and I had a quick look to see if it was still there, and it was. And the best thing is, I haven't used this in ages. Like I said on the last one, this goes on every trip with me, wherever I'm going. It's always in my bag. I don't know why. I can't leave home without it. But it's still turned on. I couldn't believe it. I wonder if it'll still do it.
Oh, I can see it trying.
It's trying. Hey, yeah, there we go.
Little green light.
Hey, go on, Game Boy Advance. Haven't charged this in ever. Maybe you can hear it.
What is that, Metroid?
Yeah, that's the start of Metroid. That's like the non-instrumental bit. But yeah, Metroid's on there, ready to save me from a Scottish summer, regardless of where I am. And just one last shout, we got an awesome comment from Chris the Snail Driver.
Yeah. Cheers for that comment, man. Great comment.
Yeah, this is just a shout out. Thanks so much. That's really, really cool comment. That made us both smile for the rest of the day.
For sure. 100%.
Really awesome. Yeah, glad somebody's enjoying this. Every time we do one, we're like, is anybody watching this? Really? Yeah. Awesome. So yeah, where do we start with this?
So you've had a lot of experience being a road captain even before you met me, haven't you?
Yes.
Yeah, so you always get volunteered for it. And did you always lead? You've talked now about several of your trips that you've done to Scotland and to Germany and Italy, I think you mentioned. Did you always lead those trips as far as like you being the human who is first in line on the road?
No, I didn't really. And we would often take it in turns back in the day. I mean, my first actual motorcycle trip was Scotland. And way back then, I just didn't know
when was that? Like, how old were you?
It was about 15 years ago.
Right. So you were like 46, 47 at the time.
Cheeky. I was 43.
Right. Okay.
Dick. Yeah, so it started out with that. No, I didn't lead at all. Didn't lead even a slight bit for that. And then I started riding with a guy called Nathan, and I got a lot of my motorcycle knowledge and riding experience with him. And we would take it in turns. He sort of introduced me into biking as I know it today, and he had already been doing it for years.
Right.
So we started to get used to it. I started to lead, and he would take over, and so on and so forth. And then I went on my first Europe trip with 2 other guys, Mouse and Fez. And during that trip, Mouse led for a while because we hadn't been driving on the other side of the road before when we got abroad. But after a little while, I said, you know what, I'd like to have a go at going in front and see how that is. And we did it throughout that trip. We swapped sort of every day or every
whatever.
Yeah, we've always been really chilled out. Like, who cares who's leading? I don't care. You feel like it today? Nah, I can't be asked. You have a go.
Yeah.
And it wasn't anything set up or organised. In fact, the whole fucking trip wasn't set up or organised. So
knowing the three of you, I'm impressed you even got anywhere.
It was more a measure of how hungover are we today, and what can we manage. And whoever was the least wrecked used to go in front. So it was like that for a while. And I don't know how I ended up getting volunteered for it. I think I came back from a couple of those trips, and we were just. I think it might have been down to the fact that back then I was one of the few people that had a sat nav. So I was always ready to go whenever we were leaving a party, a party or a bike rally to go somewhere. I had a sat nav, and it was like bop bop bop, we're off, and everyone was like, oh well, he knows where he's going. Why don't we just follow him?
Evolved, that you were just kind of like in go mode already, and so it was just easiest, and off you go.
That was it, yeah. And I'd done a bunch of these long trips by then with two other guys.
And when you're leading, when you're doing that, and you've got either one person or two or three or four people, do you find that you, being a road captain, is stressful, more stressful than just riding either by yourself or following somebody else? Like, do you have more work to do, or do you find it sort of like a demanding experience to be a road captain?
I think it certainly adds a slight edge to it, and I've never found it very stressful. You know, if I usually say when we're setting off, you know, you need to have an idea of where we're going, and you ideally need to have your own sat nav to find your way back. But back in the day when people didn't have that sort of thing, you had to really keep the group together and make sure people didn't get lost that little bit more.
Yeah.
So the pressure's edged off a little bit.
So the main pressure for you is really more about just keeping all of the ducks together. That's the number one kind of concern you have as being a road captain. That's
number one, and there's also a bunch of other things that you have to allow for. So when Lee and I are riding, there's only two of us. So if I want to stop, I've got to stop. I don't know, to tighten my luggage, to fuck with the sat nav, to do some other shit. I know that I'm looking for a space for two bikes,
right,
which is damn near anywhere you can get one bike. You know, you can normally squeeze two in into a farm gateway or a lay-by that's full of other shit in there.
Yeah.
You can always normally get them in. And the other thing is Lee's used to riding with me. So if I pull in and she doesn't feel like it's quite right for her to get into there, she won't panic. She'll just cruise past and pull in somewhere else.
Yeah, but you and I have kind of a unique relationship with your road captaining because we've done so much riding together.
Yeah, which
surely
is,
that's different than if you're talking about like a ride out for a rally, or even going on tour with people that maybe you just don't ride every day with, and you're not totally comfortable with each other's styles or whatever it might be.
Yeah, totally. And the other thing that you're thinking of is if it's a big group like 20 bikes, you are thinking about the fact that not everybody's going to be on the same experience level.
Yeah.
And some people are, you try to add extra allowance. Not everybody's going to be quite so quick off the mark. Not everybody knows how to behave when you're in a group and things like that, and you try to be aware of those. And simple things have to change the more bikes there are. So, and other things come into play. So if it's you and 5 other bikes, the chances are it's just going to be the road captain and those 5 other bikes. You can totally do that.
Yeah.
So I'm coming into a junction. I've got 5 bikes with me, and the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to stop at the junction, regardless of whether it's clear. Don't care. And I'm going to wait for the bikes to bunch up in the rear view mirror. I can normally see the last bike. The other thing I'll sometimes do is if the last bike hasn't got his headlights on, I'll nip and just give him a nudge and say, can you bung your lights on? Because I can't pick a bike out and all that crazy, but I can pick a few headlights out, and that's way easier for me to see.
Especially if you know the guy in the back has a recognizable headlight.
Yeah.
Like
yeah,
I love
which
it when
some of us
Mouse
do.
is in the back because his
Yeah,
headlight is
massive
massive. So it's that light is there and has stopped moving.
You've got everyone.
You've got everybody.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. So now I'm going to wait for everybody, for there to be enough gap in the traffic that I feel like I can get everybody out. And that is going to be my next priority, is to get everybody out of that junction and give them somewhere to go. Now, I've seen it before. I've been following other guys where they'll cross, say, a T-junction, and they will go, oh, I need to wait for the guys to catch up. Unfortunately, they stop the minute they've got across the other side of the T-junction, and there's nowhere to put 5 bikes behind them. No one will go around you. They just will not go around the road captain, and which they totally could, because I'll find my way back to the front, but it won't happen.
That was definitely a big hurdle for me. I mean, we can talk about that a bit.
Yeah, I'd love to know what your experience was.
But it's
like.
so true that like Nate is God on this trip.
Yeah.
Do not pass God.
I don't feel like that at all.
It doesn't matter if you have to drop anchor and nearly dump your bike. Don't pass him.
Yeah.
Like, nobody says that, but there's some kind of mentality of like.
Yeah, that's what you do. I think that's
you've got to like make a shit decision to not pass him, rather than be like, God, this is a stupid place that he's stopped.
Yeah. And
off.
I can totally make mistakes. You know,
right.
Everybody does.
But I think when that dynamic has been set up that way, that people they're gonna follow you and not like, you know, usurp that position.
No, it does seem to be very strict.
Yeah.
Another thing that made me uniquely followable was the fact that my bike is a 250, was a 250, which is about, in any group of full-on bikers who are out touring and stuff, that is to most people unimaginably small and slow.
Yeah.
So everybody could always keep up with me. There's nothing worse than getting behind a road captain who's on some sport bike
and he's riding like he is.
Yeah, and just rides at his usual pace.
Yeah.
But the guy on an old 500 single has got no hope.
Yeah.
No hope at all.
Or you're just screaming that bike the whole time, and then it just becomes unpleasant. You know, then it's just like, this isn't very fun.
No, and you're constantly sweating that you've got to. I've been there because I've been on a 250 and led by a guy on a 1,000 or even a 600 or something who's not sort of taken that into account.
Yeah.
And to be honest, if I'm doing road captaining with any kind of meaningful group of people, other than when it's like just me and you, or me and maybe 2 people who ride with us and know us really well, I'm 50 mile an hour max.
What I do think is an interesting question for you, and sort of a topic of you being nominated all the time for road captaining, even now where we know everybody's got a sat nav, everybody could do it, is this sort of confidence that you have to do that. So when you're out in front, does it even ever pass your mind thinking about other people watching you ride?
What do you mean? Like critiquing my riding style?
Yeah, or just, either your riding style, or if you screw it. Like, we've all been in the parking lot of like a bike meet or a pub or something, and that's the time where you freaking stall your bike, right?
Oh, yeah.
Like, you could ride that bike on your own everywhere all over God's green earth, and the minute 20 people are watching you pull out, you forget to have this. You have the side stand down and make a great fat ass of yourself.
Yeah.
And I think, like, for me, I can say from my own personal experience, I totally get that anxiety.
Do you get nerves? Do you get like performance nerves?
And it's not real. So, like, if you were going to ask me to road captain, I would obviously be, like you said, concerned about making sure everyone gets through the junctions, concerned to not ride too quickly so no one kind of has a bad time. So there are like some of those logistical concerns that are obviously part of what you think about.
Yeah, totally.
But also way bigger than any of those like worries would be that kind of like, people are going to be watching me ride a motorcycle situation. And that is so much more stressful to me than all of those other things that you were talking about.
Yeah, that never really crossed my mind that would bother somebody.
That's why I think sometimes you get nominated because you are good at it, and I'll be the first person to tell you when you suck at something and you're awesome at as a road captain, but I think also because nobody else wants to do it.
Yeah,
so
I don't
you
think
kind
a lot
of
of people
get,
want to do
you
it.
get nominated, I think, also by default, because the rest of us would have to pick straws, you know, who's gonna get the shitty end of the stick here and have to do it. Whereas you often will be like, oh God, I'll just do it, let's go. Because you don't, like, kind of have the same negativity, or I don't know what the right word is surrounding doing it.
There's no apprehension there at all, and it's just something to do. I mean, it's neither here nor there. It really doesn't detract from my riding enjoyment. Occasionally I like to be part of the throng and be in the middle of it all.
Yeah, because that's its own unique experience, isn't it?
It
to just
totally
be surrounded
is.
by lots of motors and bikes and stuff like that.
Yeah, even my mum. My mum's comes along and rides with us on various things like the Easter egg run and the Christmas toy
runs,
run and stuff like that. And she always asks for that. She's on the back of my bike. She goes, "Can we go in the middle?"
Yeah.
You know, in amongst all this noise and rabble and bikes and stuff. I like that, and that's the one part of it that I do miss if I'm not, when I am road captain. If I'm not in it, is I do miss that feeling of being amongst it all. But it's just I find it so easy to do.
Yeah.
So easy to do, and I have seen other people want to do it and really struggle and have a hard time and be very stressed out. I don't want my friends to be stressed out.
Yeah.
And if there's something you do that sucks for you, that doesn't suck for me, of course I'm going to volunteer.
I really think that's a big...
I think everybody does.
I think that's a big part. Well, I can at least know from our personal experience, because we ride so often together. I think I'm getting better at it now. I think I'm starting to overcome some of my own, like, lack of confidence or lack of security with that now. The more I just do it, the more I just lead and get it over with. And I think it's this is a very vulnerable topic. I'm bearing my soul here
for the camera.
But I think it is a bit like, if you said, Lee, you need to get these 4 guys to the cafe. Could I do that? Absolutely.
Totally, yeah, in a pinch, no problem.
I have a lot of confidence about that. I know I wouldn't risk anybody's, safety. Like, could I get them there? Totally. But the whole ride there, I'm not enjoying riding.
No, you'll be wired.
I'm wired.
Yeah.
I'm like oh, I'm white knuckled. I feel anxious having these eyes on me that I'm not used to having. Then I feel like when I get a group behind me, I'm like, what is happening to my body parts? Like, why is this not working? Like, I've forgotten how to turn a motorcycle on. Like, what the fuck is going on? And then it sort of hits me, and then I'm not having a good time.
No. Whereas I think this brings us on to where you start riding with bigger groups. So we've talked a little bit about riding with a small group, sort of 5 or 6 bikes.
Yeah.
But then when you move up to the big groups of sort of 20 bikes, other things come into play. Now in the past, it's just been a case of me at the front, and then you'll get guys amongst the group who naturally volunteer themselves as blockers and marshals. So you can't get, in the UK particularly, like Lee says, there's not enough room, there's not enough of a gap in traffic to get 20 bikes out. It takes ages.
Not happening.
So you'll get blockers who are amongst the group and just want to help out. Nobody's giving commands and orders and shit like that. But they will naturally see me pull out. They're normally one of the first few bikes, and they will block off the junction to stop cars breaking up the line of bikes.
But when you look at the route ahead of time, do you ever look at that? So, like, if we're going to, we're going to a cafe, you plug that into the sat-nav. Do you take a look at that route at all to try to pick a route that has less junctions or anything like that?
Nowadays, a little bit, yeah. Because sat-navs have come on leaps and bounds, and it's much easier to see. In this country, because of the side of the road that we drive on, going out of a junction and turning left is always easier.
Yeah.
So give me 5 lefts instead of 3 rights, and I'll go that way.
Yeah.
But I'm not that's a 2-minute thing right before we leave.
Right.
And I know that I can get people through there. Yeah. The other thing that you'll get, which is a conversation I had with you when we first started riding together, which a lot of people who are new to riding in groups, and we've all been there at some point, is what happens if I get left behind? What happens if a traffic light changes? Well, it's all well and good talking about junctions, but traffic lights will cut you off.
Yeah.
And no, unless you go on, like, if you're on a huge 300 bike ride, then they will block the junctions and just ride straight through the red lights. Like some of the egg runs we do, they just block it. No one's going anywhere.
That is really, really controlled marshalling.
Yeah, that's what we're talking about here.
We've never ever led.
We can't do that.
No.
We're not. We're informal.
Yeah, exactly.
So yeah, and it was a conversation I try to have with everybody at some point. Is don't worry if you get left behind. If a traffic light cuts you off, I'll notice and I will pull the group in further up the road without turning off somewhere else.
Yeah. That's the thing
we will slow it down.
You always told me is, I won't leave this road. If I lose you, I might not be able to pull up right away, but I won't turn. I won't leave the straight road that we're on until we reconnect.
Yep.
And I've seen you either sit on the side of the road or even sit with your indicator on to turn right, waiting for me to kind of catch you up. And I think you work that way also when you're road captaining for a larger group.
Exactly, yeah. And with that one, people are probably wondering what happens when you can't do that. What happens if you've done a turn and then there's another turn that you've got to take off that road and you physically can't stay on that road. In that case, what I'll do, if it's just me and Lee, I will take that turning and I will stop so I'm visible.
Yeah.
As you're riding along the road, you can't miss me. If I'm doing that with a group of 5 or 6 bikes, I'll pull in the junction a little bit more, but I'll pull over and everybody else will follow suit, but I'll make sure you're visible.
Yeah.
And I have, even in the past, even more so than that, I have not been able to do that safely, and I've thrown my bike quickly onto the kickstand, hopped off and jogged back to the junction and just sort of waved people down that side road. And they've bunched up naturally and sort of gathered again. I've hopped back on my bike and taken off. That's very rare.
So since we've now been riding together, and I think when a lot of the times you're road captaining for larger groups, we're together.
Yeah, nowadays we're pretty much always together wherever we go.
Do you think that's easier now because you have me and the headsets to kind of help with that straggler situation?
100%. Back in the day, pre-Lee, pre-headset, we would have what's known as a sweeper, which is a guy that rides right at the back of the pack, who's also got a sat-nav, back when like a couple of people had sat-navs, or a map, or knows the route. And if he's really familiar with the route, then he's the guy to have at the back. If he's local, great, put him at the back.
Yeah.
And if he gets stuck or stranded somewhere, and not necessarily at the back, like I've said, if you've got 5 bikes behind you, you can keep them with you, no problem. So you'll put him like a couple of 3 bikes in from the back, or tell him just hover near the back somewhere, and people will follow him if you get split up. So you know he's kind of got them. But it got a lot better when you came on the scene. We started riding together, and one of the first things we did was add intercoms.
There is a review on this channel, actually.
Yeah, if you look through the channel videos, you'll see a review of our first headsets. We had those ages.
We did have those ages, and they worked pretty good. Now that we've upgraded, I can feel the difference and see the difference on them. But they worked really well, and I think we really got used to having them and having the ability to speak to one another.
Yeah, when we're out and about, we chat pretty much continuously, particularly, and I mean, this comes up, we go through foreign cities, we try to avoid foreign cities, but one of the things where we talk the most that we can relate to this particular situation is getting through a foreign city.
City centre.
Yeah, and that doesn't necessarily mean overseas. It also relates to cities in the UK that are new to us that we don't know, and there are loads of opportunities.
Or even just cities in general, because like you said, lights change, or other drivers are jerks and will pull out in between us and cut you up. And it just makes it so you don't have to stop.
Yeah.
Because I can say over the headset to you, oh, this guy cut me off, but I can still see you. Go ahead. I got you. Like, just keep going. I can see you from where I'm at. I'll come up in a minute.
So when we ride together, we don't need to do a lot of that. We know each other and we follow each other really well. But when you get to a city, it brings that in. No matter how familiar you are, it brings that in. And you have to do a lot of back and forth.
So just to show you what kind of headset we have now, this is the mount on the side of my helmet, and down here you can see the little wire that goes actually into the helmet itself, which is where the headset goes. So for those of you guys who maybe don't have headsets or haven't used them before, there's a speaker in each ear, and then there's like a boom mic right there that you can see. You can kind of move that mic around, it's flexible, and get it in the right spot. The ones that we have now is the Cardo Freecom 2 Plus. So this is the actual like unit that just clips right onto that mount on the headset, and away you go. And I love these. They've got really great battery life. They're pretty good on distance. Cardo does the 2 Plus and the 4 Plus. So the 2 Plus version is only 2 riders. And I think it's like a half a mile distance, where the 4 Plus is 4 headsets. And then I think it has a mile connection distance. So now that we have those, usually if we're in a larger group and you're doing your road captaining, I'll be
road mom.
Sweeping, I guess.
Yeah, you're road mom to the ones at the back.
Yeah, and then we can talk to each other, and I can say, like, not everybody made it through that junction, or we didn't get out, or... you'll even tell me, I saw you didn't all get out. We're taking the next right. It's an immediate right-hand turn. And then I can even overtake anybody who didn't make it. So if I'm way at the back, Nate and 4 people rode off. There's 3 people in front of me who didn't make the junction. I can overtake them and kind of like road captain them through that turning to get them to meet up with you. Which I just imagine is so much easier than with doing it without that.
To be honest, for me, that's been total night and day. Because I've basically now got 2 pairs of eyes. Yeah. There's no physical way that I can see the back of that group. Especially down some of the narrow, winding lanes that we use. Almost exclusively, and just being able to say to Lee, you know, are they all with us? Are they still there? Yeah. That's been absolutely fantastic. So yeah, I think that's pretty much it for today. That's a little insight.
That was a rambly one.
That was a rambly one.
That was a really rambly one. I hope that was still fun for our.
We didn't really have anything to show you or anything.
You want to tell them what this is actually? That's been kind of. Here with us.
I haven't even pointed this out.
You haven't even pointed it out.
Dug this out for some sort of background scenery, but this is my old fairing. This went, talking about the trips we've been on to Europe, this has been on quite a lot of them, and picked up various stickers and bits of artwork and things. People have drawn on it and left me messages and things. There's actually a video of my old XV250 that's got this on in the middle of Germany, somewhere on the channel. And somebody at some point wrote Road Captain right here on the top, because they were determined that I was going to do it that day. Like, you're the Road Captain.
Because no one else wants to.
I remember the conversation went something like, dude, you got a road captain. I'm like, man, I'm hungover as fuck. Oh, God. They're like, mate, I've written it on there. You've got to do it now. It's written on your bike.
Too late. It's you.
God damn it. So, yeah, I hope you enjoyed that. That was very rambly. If there's something you'd like us to talk about, put it in the comments. So, yeah, thank you for joining us for another episode. I'm proud of you if you made it to the end. And slightly amazed. Yeah. And, well, hopefully we'll see him in the next episode.
See you next time.
Yeah. Bye-bye.
Bye, everybody.